I'm Sara Jo Wilson, and I am the wife of Carl. And I have thoroughly enjoyed.
I got to get closer so I can hear this.
I have thoroughly enjoyed sitting here and listening to you all. It has just been great to just the different personalities and the different ways God has worked in your lives, and I just thank you for sharing all of that. And just wanted to share a little bit, let you know who I am, because with the high school ministry, I plugged in where I could, but I didn't do a whole lot, and I guess I sort of kept the home fires burning. I had my own little action group at home, and had a husband who was holding all of you all together, and so it was just a really neat time, and God taught me so much. Well, He began long before that, but that just the different experiences. You all have talked about so many victories and so working through so much stuff. There were a lot of downers too, and I mean, since we've been here, I've heard about problems you've had with your children and with different ministries, with health and relationships, and life ain't easy. And what I'm realizing as I've heard you all talk is that when it isn't easy, then we really are thrown onto the Lord. We have to trust Him, and I'm so thankful that we have Him to trust, that it isn't on our shoulders. I was telling one of you all yesterday about learning that, well, long before this particular incident, but I really learned that good when we had our first child, Mary. I am not a very extrovert, shall we say, and as Smokey said, I'm a lot like you, Smokey. I'm not I'm a responder, and so this little baby, from the beginning, just had her own plans. I could almost see her figuring out what she wanted to do, and by the time she was a year old, I didn't know what in the world I was going to do. How was I going to raise this child? She was so different from me, and the Lord graciously taught me, and I don't know how, but He taught me that she did not belong to me. She belonged to Him, and He had given her life and her personality and given her to us as for a responsibility for a time, but it wasn't my responsibility to make her reach her potential or whatever. It was God's, and that, I mean, it was almost like a big weight had fallen off of my shoulders when I realized that, and I have had to learn that over and over again. Wouldn't it be nice if we could learn lessons and then that be it for the rest of our lives? But there have been so many times when I have had to go back to that, and that's become sort of a foundational thing. And when we had 5 children, she was the biggest problem at first. Then she became a Christian, and all of that energy was directed into, and of course she's not exactly perfect now, but she is great, and the Lord has used her greatly. And I became involved with Carl, since we're talking about the high school ministry, in college. I thought I was a Christian. I was raised in a Presbyterian church, and I never heard the gospel. And went to a Presbyterian college where my dad taught. I never heard the gospel. In fact, the the man in charge of the Bible and philosophy department said that talking about Christ's blood made him sick, and that was the type of churchianity that we picked up at college, and but that was where I became a Christian. That's where I met Carl. I was going to be a missionary doctor. I was that dedicated to want to have my life count and to help people and to respond to needs. And so I was directed from the time I was in junior high, chemistry, biology, math, anything that would prepare me for medical school and for all of that. And I played the piano at youth meetings at church and helped out with Bible school. I mean, I was the best little Christian. But I knew my heart. God knew my heart. Somehow or another, I knew God knew my heart. And it wasn't what other people knew, and it really bothered me. So I got to college, and I wasn't doing so good. I could do, I could ace a class in school with no problem in high school. In college, it was a little harder. And I didn't like that. I hate to admit it, but I'm a very proud person. I wanted to be the best, and I wasn't the best all the time. And so Carl was telling about us really, I guess, meeting each other mainly in the chemistry class at college, and he was the fanatic at college. He had come from the Navy, Air Corps, and become a Christian, and he was speeding along as a Christian, and the aforesaid head of the philosophy department was doing everything he could to dilute down Carl's influence at school. And so I didn't really want anything to do with him because he was, strange. And so he began to help me in the chemistry class. He invited me to talk about starting things. You all amaze me. You go into a place, you get things organized, and you get a ministry going. Well, that's what Carl did. He hit Maryville College ministering, and he got some of the students there got so excited about Christ, and they had a gospel fellowship was what it was called.
Gospel fellowship is what we call it.
I think it was on Tuesday night. Tuesday nights.
100 kids. There wasn't 900 kids in the college.
And it was going gangbusters. And so he invited me to go, and I said, I don't really want to go, but I will. And one of you all today was mentioning how you went to a meeting, I can't remember which one of you it was, that when you went to that meeting, there was something different about it. I don't remember. It was you. And that was exactly how I felt. I was in the middle of about half of a nervous breakdown already from college and not feeling very, very adequate in my own strength like I prided myself in being. And those kids on that Tuesday night were like Carl. They really knew Christ. And I had never, seen that before. And so I did go back. And in the process, it was your all's lives. And then he began to, see me more than just at the meetings, but one-on-one, and taught me a lot about the scriptures also. And so I became a Christian. And I honestly don't know how. It just was, within a period of about 2 weeks, I realized instead of wanting to be a medical missionary to help people, I wanted to be a medical missionary to help people know Christ. And it was a whole different aspect. It was just a whole different basis of living. And it was just revolutionary. Of course, you all know that. I mean, you've been through all of this in your way yourself. And so from that point, after Carl and I got married, we went through the process of God leading us different ways, and we didn't ever get the things that we thought we were going to do way back. And I can from experience counsel young people now: go for your dream, but trust the Lord in the way He guides you. Because I never became a doctor, and I never became a missionary, but I had 5 children. And y'all, I'm not a real outgoing person like Smokey said he isn't, but it's just such a blessing to have the privilege of serving Him the way He made me, and to have those 5 children who have had, some of them have had some of them still are having major problems, but it's just a privilege to be able to trust God and to know that God's in charge and I'm their mom, and that I can trust Him and don't have to worry about it. When I went through cancer, same thing. I didn't know how it was going to turn out, but I knew God knew, and it was going to happen anyway, so hey, let's do all I can do, and then just and I think that you can relax. You really can, and as you all have seen God work in the lives of so many people, He is doing the work, and you all know that. You're available, and He is doing it. And what I have enjoyed doing more than anything else, just since I'm not an upfront person, I had my little, as they were growing up, my little fellowship group right at home, and then I had the privilege of working with young people, and mostly high school age young people that were my children's age, or in the church, or even staff on Campus Crusade High School staff. I met with them some, the women, and had so many privileges of being able to do that. There was one girl I was telling you about, telling somebody about, I believe it was you, Della, who is now on Navigator staff in Asia. And she was a high school student, Patsy, in Fayetteville, Georgia, where we lived for many years. And she was one of my favorite girls. She just was on top of it spiritually. In fact, she came on the discipleship staff over at University of Georgia after she finished high school. She was so dedicated to helping young people. But she married a doctor he became a doctor. So they went through the whole process of him becoming a doctor. They went to Africa with not Doctors Without Borders, Men Moving Mountains, something like that, one of the that type of organization. For about 13 years they worked there, and such a blessing. I tell you what, to hear her talk and to have her letters come about what God was doing. And then they came home, and now they're in Asia, where I don't know. It's some place where they don't talk about where they're he is training. I think he's mainly a surgeon, and they're training local doctors in that country, and they are discipling. I mean, I just love it. I love being able to look back and see how God has worked, and we don't have any more time, but I just wanted to share some of those things with y'all.